Mendelsohn Rubin, and I'm at LOUVER Gallery in the upstairs exhibition space in Venice, California, having a small show here. Having lived in Southern California for about a third of my life, and now in Northern California for not quite as much, I've been thinking for a long time, or thinking for the last few years, about pursuing a theme that relates to the state as a whole. And in the course of doing some research every once in a while between paintings, I came up with the theme of water. It's interesting now that we're in a drought that the subject of water has become even more pronounced. The title of the show is A Common Thread, and that has to do with the subject of water that stitches all the work together. In my last show, I had my first of the aerial pieces was Above and Beyond. It was a painting of my house and studio from an aerial perspective in the valley beyond. And I hired a friend of mine who has a business doing aerial photography, and he and his partner came up. I explained what I wanted to do, and they came up with a giant mast, and they had the camera up on top of the mast. They took a sweep of about 6 pictures of that area. After I did that triptych, I did this one. But I wanted to do this one where it showed where I'm living in context with nature. The relationship of the scale of civilization to the amount of nature that's all around. I had my friends come up with their microcopter, and they went out a couple times at twilight, or right just before sundown. I had in my mind's eye what I wanted to do. And then we went out in the morning, and I took a zillion pictures, and out of that I got 2 paintings. So, and this is one of them. So after that experience, and my research about water and wanting to do stuff about water, I hired one of them, my friend Steve, has a small airplane. I asked if he would take me on a little flight following the river, going out to the oceans. And I took a zillion pictures. We flew out to the coast, back around, and came back. And I start out with multiple images, and I kind of narrow it down to usually one image, and the photographs take in way more information that I end up using. And it takes me a long time to become familiar enough with the photograph to find in there the kernel of information that I'm interested in plucking out, to then figure out what is it in there that's really inspiring me to work with this image. So the photograph is a tool. There were places where you could barely see a ribbon of water nestled in with all these big trees, and then coming back we flew over areas where the river was more exposed, and you could actually see it in relationship to not only the natural world that is still untouched, but how the human presence has changed and shaped the land. So you've got these 2 patterns and textures going on right next to each other. These are so much like portraits to me. There's a relationship with the land in a way that you would look into someone's face and do a portrait, or a reclining figure. For me, the landscape has that kind of draw. It's a relationship, and I think of those little islands of water as like the windows of the soul, and also the blue of the water in contrast to the color of the light on the land. It has that draw. I have empty paint tubes, small paint tubes, and I mixed up all of the various transitions of color, and I tubed them up, and I made a diagram, and I had all my tubes of paint laying on my diagram and the places that they had to go. I cleared my calendar for as long as I needed to, and just was in the studio staying in the painting. You know, I sometimes think of myself as a sculptor. because the paintings are so much about building space. It's so important to have a really strong composition, but then once I start painting, it's like building a house. I mean, there are many layers. You get the foundation of the composition, and then putting on the electrical, and then putting on all the different elements. They're just so much about sculpting the space, finding the light, and there is a bit of paint on there. I mean, they're not really thin. They're not photorealist in that way. They're very much built up, and it's the tactileness of what you feel, the density of the world around us is what I'm really wanting to capture in these pieces. It wasn't really a conscious decision that I would do a whole body of work that was so small. It started out that I just happened to have some small surfaces, and I had these very distant views that I was attracted to painting, and the scale just felt like the right way to do it. The small scale just compresses the space. Everything is so compressed. By being so compressed, it amplifies your experience of the space. The world is becoming a very small place. In a way, this talks about the preciousness of that, the preciousness of the planet, the preciousness of these individual selections of our natural world, and they become kind of time capsules, a sort of preservation or an extension of my own environmental concerns, the beauty of the world that we live in, just taking a little piece of it and kind of preserving it in a painting.